Hello, my lovely hummingbirds, and welcome back to another episode of Rate It here on Pop Culture, the series where we cover everything to do with movies, media, entertainment, all good shit, reviews, and, talk a whole lot of shit too in the same time. Joining me today, we have Nickyyy and Gabe. Give them a warm, very warm Pop Culture welcome. This is Gabe's first time on Pop Culture. He so graciously agreed to be on here. And I'm ecstatic because it's usually just Nickyyy and I arguing with each other about movies.
Now there's someone to decide a winner.
Gabe likes movies about as much as we do, if not a little more. He has a more artsy taste to them than we do, for sure. But Gabe, tell us a bit about why you like movies.
Yeah, all right. So there's no bad answer to this question, right? But I feel like movies is just a good way to kind of cut out from all the bullshit going on in life, and just kind of zone in and enjoy something for an hour and a half to 3.5 hours now, right? But I've always enjoyed movies for not only just the movie watching aspect, but the discussion aspect of you and your friends go see a movie, and then sure, the movie was good, but then that car ride home is the best part. Yeah. So it's that kind of shared experience in a community.
For sure.
It's like that car ride home we had when we watched the Batman.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh my god.
We pretty much talked the entire time driving home.
That was so good. It was such a good movie. Even when we went to eat afterwards, it was. Oh yeah, we did eat afterwards. Yeah, it was such a great discussion. So that is the perfect introduction for today's episode, where we're going to discuss what makes a great movie. For today, though, we're each going to take turns describing what makes a great movie for each of us, and as well as giving our takes on those descriptions. But it's not going to be purely opinion-based. I did my research a little bit for this one. We will also discuss the way movie critics are supposed to critique films. There's a whole lot of he said, she said, though, and I had to basically get AI to tell me what is the actual structure, because there was so many, whether it was Reddit, Quora, fucking everywhere on the internet, a discussion of critics are supposed to do it this way, but they either get bought out or it's very opinion-based to some degree. For today, we are covering horror, specifically supernatural horror. And for today's genre, because there are so many types, I'm you know what, that just feels like the easiest way. Supernatural horror films are those with anything in the realms of gods, demigods, entities, spirits, ghosties, and spells and witches. And originally I was oh, that includes vampires and werewolves. That's a different kind of horror. I learned something new in the process of it. Fun fact though, supernatural films were not originally intended to scare people. They were supposed to be feel-good films with lessons in them. Think Bewitched is actually considered a supernatural comedy show.
That movie is scary as fuck.
So, Nickyyy, kick us off. What makes a great supernatural film for you?
Supernatural, specifically. Now, when you say supernatural, you also mean just horror-based or supernatural?
Across the board.
Across the board? So when it comes to supernatural, I always like how sometimes it's derivative of another sort of lore, or whether it's, it could be Greek mythology, it could be Catholicism, it could be something made up, it could be Dungeons and Dragons, just made up stuff. And if it sticks to that and maybe adds its own little spice where it's not just copy and paste, then I think that's good. Gotta make it entertaining to almost everybody, because when it comes to that, at the end of the day, we're here to watch a movie. Yeah. Let's have a good time. Yeah. Let's not be too preachy, not too much dialogue, where it's why are they talking about this when the whole movie is where it has nothing to do with the movie? Yeah. Or you're kind of going over the same shit over and over again. Right. That's with any movie, if you think about it. Yeah. Supernatural.
What about supernatural horror?
When it comes to supernatural horror, leave it to a mystery. In the sense that you kind of don't know what you're walking into. Okay. Because when Gabe first mentioned, he's the one who suggested I should watch Hereditary. You're the one who also suggested it and actually watched it with me. And thank you for not telling me anything other than to watch it.
No spoilers.
Because, he literally told me nothing other than it's his favorite and just just watch it. That's I know you said a little bit more to it, but it was enough to get me intrigued.
But you forgot the rest.
He was like, let me just block that out real quick. No, even when I was like, no, you need to watch it. It's a good horror movie.
Because that's another thing I was gonna say is that when it comes to let's say there's a new movie coming out, don't spoil it too much, because sometimes you put the whole movie in a trailer and it's like, well, I kind of watched it already. Whereas if you go into it blind with just a little taste, little
sprinkle,
then you don't know what you're getting into, and also I know that kind of leaves it blind. That leaves it up to disappointment, but if it's a positive, then it's even better because it's not what you expected at all.
Right.
And that's what I got from movies like Hereditary, Midsommar, I'm trying to think of another instance where they were very vague. Oh, that movie we watched last week.
Don't Worry, Darling.
Don't Worry, Darling. You literally didn't tell me anything.
No, I was like, no, I can't spoil it.
other than it was written by Olivia Wilde, or just directed. Did she
directed? I think she helped with the writing as well. Yeah.
And that it had Nick Kroll in there for some reason. And
Florence Pugh, baby.
That's baby. And Chris Pine. And I was right.
Yeah.
And I was right the entire movie. He is way too handsome to be the bad guy. Nobody is that good looking and evil.
And is evil.
Except for a woman.
And
I was right. And I was right.
Wrong.
Well, we've all seen Blood.
True. And so, just real quick touch before you give us your top 5 supernatural horror movies.
Oh, fuck.
One of the things that you mentioned, and I feel like in today's day and age, because everything is so tech heavy, because everyone does kind of go for that instant gratuitous feeling, especially with social media, especially with things like TikTok, where it's like quick. There was a thing, and this is not horror, but Deadpool and Wolverine, Ryan Reynolds was kind of pissed when people released set pictures, somehow they snuck in, and he's like, well, fuck it, since it got leaked anyway, here you go. But it's like, I feel like, one, it takes away from the art that is made, it takes away from the people working on the film, because to some degree, while we may want to know, part of what makes a good movie is the anticipation, it is the build-up. And
the other thing, when it comes, thank you for bringing up Deadpool and Wolverine. The other thing, and this is up to the fans, shut the fuck up with your stupid theories, because
Nicky does not like theories.
I hate before and after theories. Oh, this guy's socks were red, so that means blah 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 blah. It's like,
Spider-Man's in the movie.
So it's like, I know I just hate that, because it's like it could be anything. Can we just wait for the movie to come out?
Yeah.
And it's like that for Deadpool and Wolverine, they think that Dr. Doom is in there, but it's like the guy's holding a gun. Why would Dr. Doom need a gun?
Yeah.
To look cool.
The metal mask isn't enough. He needs a gun.
Yes.
America.
So what are your top 5 supernatural horror films?
You want to go first?
No, it's your turn.
Fuck.
I got my own paragraph I wrote and stuff, man.
Okay.
He's prepared.
He's like, I need 5 minutes. You go first.
No, because I thought about this, so it was supernatural horror. So obviously number 1 would be Hereditary.
Nice.
Because that's what got me back into horror. Because for the longest time it was nothing but...
You hated it.
It was nothing but cheap jump scares, no good story,
gore horror,
and just a bunch of unneeded sequels or prequels.
Yeah.
And it's like it was just Hereditary is a good standalone film where it doesn't need anything else. And that's what it is. And if anybody, it doesn't need a reboot, doesn't need a remake, doesn't need anything. It's the perfect. Don't touch it. Don't touch it.
Don't touch it.
And one could argue that Don't Worry, Darling is the same thing, where it's fine as a standalone film, because I think they wanted it to leave it up to mystery. But that's not my. So top for sure is number 1, Hereditary. And you said supernatural. So I wasn't 100% sure what that category was, like what fell into that category. I guess as a franchise, I'm not 100%. I'm not saying I like all of it, but it's only because it's what got me into horror as a kid was Halloween, just strictly for the nostalgia.
And it does count as supernatural because one of the
things, one of them isn't he like possessed or something?
That too, but he's also kind of unkillable, which makes it beyond human.
Well, they touch on a lot of things in Season of the Witch, but I'm with you on that.
Yeah. No, and one of the things too that I found super interesting that is considered supernatural horror, like Split. And that I was like, interesting. And then I started going down the line, and a lot of things that have to do with like psychological terror are considered supernatural, which I feel personally has a whole different issue with how we view mental health as a society, but
because
that's a whole other thing.
With Split, here's what I think happened when that monster came out. What do they call him? The bad guy that's like
controlling,
that gives him the superpowers. Basically, I think that just turns off all his inhibitors. Because anytime you're trying to, let's say you're trying to lift something, your body's hurting. It's telling you like, no, motherfucker, put that down.
Yeah.
I think for him, those are shut off.
Yeah.
And pain is shut off, and he's just a fucking maniac.
Yeah.
That's what I think. But I don't know if that counts as supernatural. It could just be another being with all power.
Yeah.
I don't know. And I guess number 2,
Haunted House with the Wayans brothers.
With the Wayans brothers. You gotta watch the second one.
Oh my god.
I did like the Grudge one just because they were so creepy.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just.
I'm still traumatized.
And here's another thing that adds to a good supernatural: the music.
The score.
Because that's what got me in The Grudge. Some of the like the music in The Grudge, or even just sounds, that creepy whatever he does. Yeah. Yeah. Like that's just if you heard that in your house, you'd be shitting yourself.
Yeah.
You'd be waking up on weekdays.
It's like, you know what? Just take me.
So I guess it just sound all in general, but I think those. I mean, I wasn't a huge fan of the sequels, but I think the first one was pretty decent.
Solid. Yeah, have you seen the original? I think it was Japanese.
The Japanese one, I never got a chance to see. I couldn't find it anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, I was like, this was a bad idea.
Yeah, and supernatural. I guess
Conjuring. You fuck with those?
I'm not a huge fan of the I like the second or the first one, but then after that, it goes into the argument. It's like,
fair.
Did we? It kind of needs a sequel, but it could have been done better.
We'll cover that in the.
Is that not on your list?
Yeah, I know.
That's supernatural.
Yes,
Definitely.
because witches spells the devil.
The real supernatural thing is that we never know.
Yes.
I guess that does count. Fuck.
Yeah.
See, you guys thought about this a lot more than I did, because I thought because it was found footage. And because that was never confirmed.
So actually, found footage to the Blair Witch counts as supernatural because we don't actually know. And one of the things that I liked about that movie, so when I went down a Blair Witch rabbit hole, and they were saying that the directors hid a lot of shit from the cast, so a lot of them being fucking terrified is real.
Yep.
So much so, like their pictures on milk cartons, they actually distributed that shit through the town that they were filming in, which is what kind of put the wow factor. Like, people did not know for a really long time, is it real or like is it just bullshit?
There was like a clause in their contract where they couldn't star in other movies for like X amount of time after Blair Witch came out.
Yeah.
And so they pretty much made their own like urban legend for it.
Yeah.
Is what happened.
It's fucking sick, in my opinion.
Okay, so I didn't know that comment.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I probably would have edited it.
None of the Insidious movies for you? Do it.
The first one. I haven't seen all of them. I've only seen the first.
Gabe is like, you're killing me here, Nicky.
Well, I just got back into horror, and you motherfuckers don't live alone.
Yeah.
He said it's different.
That's a factor.
And you don't have like a crazy ass sound system that pretty much sounds like it's happening in your room.
That's fair.
They could be like, it sounds like The Grudge is right next to you. That's not your sound system, B.
Oh my god, no, for sure.
Fuck. Now you guys added more to it. So, okay, let me just give you top 3.
Okay.
Hereditary, The Witch, and the Halloween franchise.
Okay.
Although, now that you added Blair Witch, that would probably be 4. Because
Same mod.
It's a good one, and now that I know it counts as supernatural, definitely I put it at 4. I just like Halloween just strictly for the character Michael Myers.
Fair.
He doesn't die. Well, in the first installment, he doesn't die, and then I don't want to spoilers, but in the new, was that a reboot or a remake?
Soft reboot. The 2015-18 and
the soft reboot, I guess. He does die.
Technically, kind of.
And so, and even in the Rob Zombie one, I think he dies as well.
You know, I wasn't a fan.
I wasn't either. I like the first
Rob
one.
Zombie one.
The first one was good and would have been fine by itself. The sequel was stupid.
All right, Gabe. So give us your take.
I have notes.
Amazing.
All right.
Oh, and also to be fair, you sent it to the wrong email.
I'm sorry. That was my bad.
So I didn't get my notes until yesterday.
I was like, oh shit.
So you had preparation time. I don't know.
Okay. So here's my take, right? And I feel like a lot of this can be extended to like horror movies in general. I know we're like zooming in on supernatural horror in particular. First one, to agree with Nicky, a little bit of mystery. I love that shit. Whether it's you don't know what you're getting into, or if you want to like abstract that out and be like, you don't really see the full monster.
Okay.
Right? You don't see it in its entirety. You see glimpses, you see hints, you see this and that. And like that aspect of like your mind wandering while the movie is going on, part of that is like the fun in horror in general. A little bit of believability is my number 2.
Okay.
So like I love, and we're gonna have lots of overlap here because this is like why we're boys, right?
One of the reasons why we're boys.
Greek pantheon, Catholicism, like anything by Guillermo del Toro, right? He harkens back heavily to his like Catholic roots, and then he like twists a lot of ideas on its head, and it's something being weird enough to like make a movie about it and like get your mind racing and running and be like, fuck man, like this is kind of scary, but also still rooted enough to that when the movie is done, said and over with, and you're alone in your house and it's dark, you're like, oh shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like a little bit of that, and that can come in many like ways, shapes, or forms. But I'm like a huge fan of like occult movies. Not a horror, but we rewatched Hellboy 2004, right? Okay. And my girlfriend made a comment. She was like, "Oh, this movie is literally you." There's like occult vibes. Yeah. There's like like giant Lovecraftian monsters. And then there's just like these like big bombastic action plays, and then Nazis, right?
I want to be doing one thing and one thing only: killing Nazis.
And I was like, oh yeah, like that fires on all cylinders for me. But like I think it's that believability aspect of like tying it back into something that happened, tying it back into something that is real, and having it have that anchor, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Sort of like how what they're doing with the new Godzilla movies.
Yeah,
they're tying it into the test, the A-bomb test. Supposedly they weren't tests.
Shout out Isa.
My number 3 is occult. Touched on that, but I love it when you take ideas of like, ooh, Aleister Crowley released the demon chore zone, blah blah blah, and this is like a movie about that premise, or like there was the secret society of X, Y, and Z, and now
a few shows I got to tell you about that touch on both of those.
I've probably seen all of them.
I believe it.
But like that aspect of like there were people who practiced black magic, paganism, the occult, and I'm gonna kind of like condense it. There's a lot of like theologies and religions and practices that I'm not covering, but just as a broad blanket term, like there was an underground group of people that were doing something that is way out there, and the way they worshipped or practiced or did their rituals is kind of like the antithesis or like very against the grain, and now some shit came from that. Yeah. Love me a good occult movie.
For sure.
And then the last one, the music. Right? So the music, you can make an argument for the soundtrack and the score on its own like separate point. But most importantly, it's those moments of like tension and build up, right? A horror movie is not scary without the music.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's that like doo-doo.
Yep. Actual proven. I think they did like a test in some fucking university where they showed a horror movie that so many people were like, no, this is terrifying, and they covered people's ears, and like when the jump scares were happening, no one jumped. Like it was kind of like, okay, cool. And then when they like closed their eyes and they had them only listen to the sound, like people were freaking the fuck out. Yeah. And sound, like as humans, we have this like affinity to noise.
Yeah. Because that's what they did with those Paranormal Activity movies. The bass would kick in and just tremble, and then it would just be a cop movie or something, you know? Just build up for that.
For sure.
And like, I think a good movie transports you out of your seat and puts you in the situation where like your mind is like fully zoned in on the plot or like what's going on,
for
right?
Sure.
And then the rest of your senses sort of follow suit to what's in the movie. Obviously, we can't appease everything like taste and smell most of the time, but like your eyes and your ears, the fact that we can get your heart rate racing, the fact that we can get you to yelp just through like those 2 of the 5. Beautiful.
For sure.
Yeah.
No, definitely. Like I can't remember which fucking horror movie, and it's like B-rated. It was the 8 Masters of Horror. It was kind of like a series, and it was 8 separate horror stories.
It was an anthology?
Yeah. And I was watching it, I don't know, I was at work, I had like time before I had to catch the train, so I'm like, yeah, why not? And there's this sound, this squishing sound that I was like, oh, they stepped on brain, and I don't know why I know that, and then I looked at it and I was like, oh, they did step on brain, and I was already just like crumbling. I was like, this is so good. But that said, what are your top 5 as far as supernatural horror?
Okay, so I was a little bit liberal with my perception of like supernatural horror because it's such a wide net to cast, right? So first and foremost, Hereditary.
Of course.
It is, again, the movie that dragged me back into horror movies because for the longest time, you had like a lot of crap out there, right? And then something like 2012 to 2014, something happened. There was a reinterest, there was a revival, and we kept pushing the envelope. And then Ari Aster came out with Hereditary, and I wouldn't even call it a horror movie. That movie is terrifying. It just builds and builds and builds and builds and builds to the last 2 minutes in that treehouse.
Yeah.
And that was really the first movie to just kind of like, come on, we know you like this stuff, come back in, right?
For sure.
Alien.
Ooh.
The first Alien movie. I know it's sci-fi horror, like realistically, but man, that movie does a lot of things right. And if you want to talk about movies that held up well or stuff that is still like scary / entertaining to watch nowadays, Alien aged gracefully. The design is timeless. Look at how many damn spin-offs we got, right? Just off the main line, we have 4 movies, and then we have like the prequel movies that have what, the 3 or 4 entries.
Yeah.
All the figures, whatever, right? The first Alien still does it the best, and I think it combines a lot of really cool aspects of what I like in movies in general, and then it fires on all cylinders for like the horror aspect as well.
Fair.
The first Terrifier.
Ooh, yes.
Okay, so this is a movie I actually saw recently. They were showing it at the theater by my place. It was like a $5 movie night. We had no plans. I was like, fuck it, we're gonna go see it. And I kind of knew that it was like gore porn, right? Like I was expecting that. But the first Terrifier in particular does such a good job of, one, being incredibly creepy and making your skin crawl like almost at every turn. 2, it serves the gore porn name, but then 3, it does such a good job of not taking itself too seriously. It realizes that it was filmed for $30,000.
Yes.
It realizes that the people who are going to go see this are probably desensitized to the shit you're going to show. They're desensitized to most jump scares. And Terrifier kind of like plays with your notions of what you think is going to happen. And there are some scenes in there that are either unintentionally fucking hilarious or intentionally fucking hilarious. And it was just such a fun ride from start to finish.
Agreed.
I have some hot opinions on the second one, but the first one is up there for me. Number 4, Dawn of the Dead, the 2004 Zack Snyder remake.
Ving Rhames, yeah.
Okay, so let me tell you a little bit about this movie. I was young when this thing came out, right? I was like young enough to like still be like, oh man, like this might actually happen.
Yeah.
But like old enough to understand what was actually happening in the movie and like the implications of that shit if it came out in the real world.
Right.
And I saw this movie on like, I think like the Sci-Fi Channel or Spike, whatever, one of those like early cable. And I was terrified.
Yeah.
Right.
Shout out to Sci-Fi though. It was such a solid channel.
Like I was terrified. I would watch this movie front to back, and then like the next day I would be like staring out the window like waiting for like the zombies to like start marching towards the house. And I mean, as a kid who was like, you know, preteens at that point. I was like, well, what am I gonna do? I'm gonna get eaten, right?
Yeah.
Like I can't run like that. Like I can't fight like that. Like we're donezo.
We still can.
But the movie overall, I think, is like a fun ride, and I think it's a really cool culmination of like zombie culture from the late 60s into that early 2000s range. I know there was that revival in the 2010s with like The Walking Dead, and you know, I did a whole fucking separate episode on my podcast about just zombie culture, right? But like everything that zombies were and culminated up to until 2004 was just such an interesting, cool, fun movie. And seeing the motherfuckers sprint and jump, and then taking the mall aspect of this like American zeitgeist, like the mall is a cool, fun place to hang out and be, and turning that upside down. And then that cooler scare at the very end, right? Like the first post-credit scene there ever was, where they're on the boat and they open the cooler and the zombie head screams. Shat my pants. Beautiful.
Nice.
And then my last one is Suspiria.
Ooh, yes. I was telling you about that when we were watching Don't Worry, Darling.
Okay, so I like both versions of the film, the 77 and the, 2017 remake?
Yeah, the fucking remake. It was so good.
I like them both for very, like, different reasons, and I think they both have, like, interesting quality to highlight. But the fun of that movie is kind of the same fun that Hereditary brings. When you start watching it, you have no fucking idea what to expect. And the way that Hereditary builds and builds and builds and builds and then releases in like the last 2.5 minutes, Suspiria does that, but that releases like the last half hour, and it's arguably more over the top. It's more intense. It cranks that 10 to like a 20.
Yeah.
And then releases. And you're just sitting there after the movie going like, damn, what did I just watch?
Yeah.
Your mind is racing with theories.
Yeah, for sure.
So those are kind of my 5. I know they're loosey-goosey all over the place, but...
No, solid choices. So for me, as far as supernatural horror, sound super important. Like, there has to be anticipation to the scenes. Like, it can't all, like Nikki said, they can't all be jump scares. Like, there has to be that sense of mystery behind it. There has to be this creepy factor to it where, like, I'm sitting there and being like, something's wrong. And I don't know what's wrong yet, but something is definitely fucking wrong here. I like the distortion of, like, the mind when it comes to horror movies. Like, I love me a good psychological thriller. But I don't... So one of the things that I don't like when it comes to horror is, like, trying to make everything over the top, because it doesn't all have to be. Like, I love Terrifier, it's really fucking good, and it's a solid gore horror, especially. Body horror, really good. Fucked me up for a few days. I was like, this is disgusting, and it could be real. Because serial killers are real, and that's a legitimate fucking fear.
And some of them dress as clowns.
Yeah, when that whole fucking thing was happening, where, like, people were dressing up as clowns to scare the shit out of people, I was like, no, I would lose my shit. I would probably murder in that scenario.
I was in the middle of nowhere, Ohio, when that shit was happening.
Oh, God. That is terrifying.
I was like, if I don't get murdered, I'm going to get a hate crime. At least.
No.
That's
so bad. But I also, my favorite when it comes to supernatural horror is things that have some level of basis into reality. So, like Phenomena, which is on my list, it's this movie of these Spanish mediums and / ghost investigators, where they worked heavy with the Catholic Church in order to go investigate things, kind of like what Ed and Lorraine Warren did here. And when I was watching the film, it had so much shit that I was like, you know, I haven't personally witnessed an exorcism of a person, place, or thing, but I feel like that's what it would actually be like. And one of the things that I liked was that as far as the magic aspect, because when it comes to, like, occultism and witchcraft and all that, a lot of shows, like, say, Charmed, for example, overdo it.
Scary demon.
He's gonna blow.
When in reality, no, it's like someone staring into a crystal, and the whole thing is like it's in the mind, and it's called gazing, because it's like, what are you perceiving outside of, like, what's directly in front of you? Supernatural also does it.
Fortitudinem levi sue, benedictus Deus, gloria patri.
Really well, the TV show, where they go into lore. And I love The Witch. I know you don't, but I love The Witch, because I was telling Nikki, I was like, they did their fucking research when it came to this movie. They went deep into the lore as far as witchcraft. They to me, them leading it up to like the Salem witch trials, they did it fairly fucking well, and they even researched the whole lore behind Christianity when it came to like signing the devil's book and the imagery of the goat, and like even when she cracks the egg and it's bloody, that is still a very heavy belief within occultism in at least Hispanic culture, where like if you break an egg and there's blood in it, you've been spelled as brujeria, like all this shit. So I was like, yo, wait a minute, they did their research. So I definitely love that. I love the Blair Witch Project because it's very creepy, and it also dives into like just how twisted humans are, that when we're put under pressure, shit's gonna fucking go to shit, essentially. My top 5, and like you mentioned Suspiria, and I was like, oh my god, wait, I should have put that on there. The Witch, I have The Conjuring, The Autopsy of Jane Doe, which was I guess it could be considered B-horror, Netflix film, but it was done so well because you don't really know what the fuck is going on the entire time until they peel the skin back and you're like, oh, this is a thing.
This is weird.
This is fucked up, right? Tin and Tina. So I love me some foreign horror movies. The Orphanage is right up there for me, along with this movie. Anything Guillermo del Toro does is up there for me. But Tini Tina is about these 2 twin kids that this couple adopts back in like, I think it was like the 50s or 60s in Italy, or no, Spain, one of the two. And there's something wrong with these kids, but you don't actually know what's going on with them. Throughout the entirety of the film, they're just like these fucked up kids, but there's so much like supernatural shit happening around them. And then at the end of the day, like, the husband gets got and the lady still has to take them back in. So it kind of also reminded me, there's this lore of these 2 kids that came out in some wood in Europe, and they were green, and like this is an actual thing that happened. So they kind of took a little bit of that and were like, where did these children come from thing. They're like kids of the forest. So that, and then Phenomena, which it was so solid. One of the parts that really got to me, because it's, so total spoilers, but in the whole basis of the film, they go to this antique shop. I hate antiquing. It fucks me up.
You never know what's cursed.
Yes. I'm just like, what if I grab something and I'm fucked, right?
Well, there's 2 types of girls. Let's go thrifting. And then there's Mari. No, don't fucking touch that.
No, don't touch it. No, bad vibes.
You've seen Cabin in the Woods.
Exactly. So I'm just like, absolutely not, right? But they go, the 3 women, they have like this paranormal research like company. And they go, and they're essentially trying to retire because of different shit in their life. And the padre that they help, he's like, I need your help with this, because he essentially gets attacked when he goes to bless the place, and he ends up in the hospital, he ends up dying. So they're like, let's figure out what the fuck happened. And it escalates so quickly, not just of like, oh, they're seeing demons right away. It's like just shit that starts happening to the people in the room. Like one of the characters, he starts like pulling at his hair. And they're like, yo, what the fuck is happening? And they're like, no, you gotta get him out of here. And it also showed really well how, like you said, we like this shit. We like to get enthralled into like what we don't readily understand, especially when it comes into horror. Because one of the characters, that like the 2 owners, the man and the wife is like, oh my god, she's so excited to like be there, and she's a fan. And they're like, no, but you need to get him the fuck out of here. And she's like, but I want to help. And they're like, no, you're doing more harm than good by just being here. And there was a point in the film where she's essentially the psychic medium of the group. She tells the kid, because they're playing with the Ouija board, I'm not a fan of Ouija boards, and they look at it, and he's the last one there, and she looks at him and she's like, are you afraid of the dark? And he's like, what? And she's like, did you ever sleep with a nightlight on as a kid because you were afraid that something was staring back at you? And she's like, have you experienced things where you just don't know how you know, but you know that it's gonna happen, and then it does? And he like freezes, and he's like, I can help. And she's like, no, you have a long way to go and a lot to learn before you start messing with this, because you might learn something, but there's always gonna be someone that knows something more, type
Bigger
of thing.
Fish.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, occultism in it, doing their research, something with that basis in reality of like, somewhere out there believes in this and actually practices and does all this shit where like you can find it. I love it. So how critics are supposed to critique films based on AI. Movie critics typically look for several key elements when watching a movie, including quality of the acting, strength of the storyline, effectiveness and direction, production values such as cinematography, editing, and sound, overall impact of the film, and they assess how well the movie achieves the intended goals, whether it is to entertain, provoke thought, or evoke emotion. When scoring a movie, critics often use a rating scale or a star system to quantitatively express their opinions. The score reflects their overall assessment of the film based on the aforementioned statements and their subjective experience. While movie critics strive to provide an objective evaluation of a film, it's important to acknowledge that personal biases can influence their reviews. These biases can stem from various factors, including personal preferences, previous experiences with filmmakers or actors, and or cultural or societal influences. However, professional critics endeavor to separate personal biases from their critiques and focus on the artistic merits of the movie itself. So, one of the most famous critics, who's already passed, Roger Ebert, local Chicago man. He wrote for the Sun-Times for so long, that's how he got recognized. He actually got a Pulitzer for his reviews. But while he was a very good critic, I feel like his critiquing was basically, it went from a point where it started off authentically, and then it was, his whole thing became giving negative reviews.
Because people eat that shit up.
Right. And I feel like the movie industry gets very convoluted in that sense, where, like, yes, I feel like some critics probably do get swayed to be like, okay, yeah, no, it's a great film because of this, this, and this. I feel like horror gets very shitted on overall when it comes to just not only the acting, but horror in general just gets a bad rap. I remember when The Conjuring came out and it actually had a good Rotten Tomato score, I was like, well, that's a fucking first, because horror movies never get that. So what are your guys' takes when it comes to horror, how they're critiqued, things like that?
Nick, you want to start? You want me to start?
You could go first this time.
Alright, so here's my take. I think rating systems, especially when it comes to something like a movie or music or stuff that you can relate to personally, is incredibly subjective. There is something to be said about, like, okay, well, a lot of people thought this movie was good, right? You could still fucking hate it at the end of the day. There's plenty of movies, probably in all of our catalogs, that were, like, critically very good, but then we're like, fuck this movie, right? So
Yeah.
So when it comes to stuff like that, I mean, I always take it with a giant lump of salt. But in regards to horror usually being the genre that's panned, I get it. Horror is cheap to produce, to crank out, especially if you're doing something low budget. I had mentioned that the first Terrifier was shot for 30 grand.
Yeah.
30 grand is a lot of money, but it's also not unachievable. It returned like 14 million. That is a huge ROI.
Wasn't the Blair Witch Project similar?
The Blair Witch Project was also very similar. It was filmed for, I don't know the exact budget off the top of my head, but the ROI was through the roof.
5-digit budget, I think.
Through the roof, right? And so what happens is that, and I don't want to give too much away for the prequel, sequels, reboots episode, but corporations, people in suits, people that don't give a shit about the art or the message get involved.
Yeah.
And they say, we're going to give you money for another one, we're going to give you money for another one. And you have things like the Halloween franchise, which I hated the last one. I know people are on both sides of the fence, but like that last movie for me was like, we are never touching these again. You know, and we saw the 2018, 2015, the first of the
first sequel.
The first of the reboot in theaters, and I was over the moon because it was very good.
Oh, we did?
Yeah. And then you have things like Halloween, which is 15 movies deep, and 6 of them are all named Halloween. You have things like Nightmare on Elm Street, where you're 12 movies deep. You have things like Friday the 13th, Hellraiser, Saw. And I love some of these franchises, but you cannot not acknowledge the shit that's amongst the gold, right? And so when people say horror gets a bad rep, it's because it does. It's because you have a small group of people that do a passion project, that put their whole ass, heart, soul, and pussy into it to make a movie or two.
Yeah.
Picks up steam, right? People see that tax return, and then they go, "All right, yeah, no, let's do 10 more." I think that's why it gets a lot of bad rap.
I feel like that's what happened with Fast and Furious, but you know.
That is a terrifying series of movies.
Don't say that to Roman.
But yeah, I feel like when people are like, oh, I don't like horror because they're either terrified or they're like, there's no good horror, there is gold amongst the shit. You just have to look, and a lot of the times it's looking overseas. It's looking over borders.
That's true.
Yeah, very true. So as far as acting, right, when it comes to horror movies, Nicky made a really good point when we were watching Don't Worry Darling, how you were like, it takes actors a lot to do a believable scream, because in the movie Harry Styles, his scream, he's like, I felt that shit. It was a genuine scream.
You wouldn't think, you know, he's a singer or whatever.
Yeah.
But this guy
is better than everyone.
But that's my point. Like, there was a part where he just starts yelling "fuck" like super loud, but you felt it. Like, he didn't like what happened, and it's like, yeah, okay, that's props. I mostly give him props because, you know, he's known as a singer. But any actor that can show that much emotion and just despair, like that's not easy to do. Not a lot of people. That's one thing I've always noticed about movies. They can never get, or there's very few people who can do a good scream. You know, it's mostly women, like in the horror movies, but even just a yell. Yeah, scream queens. But just even like men, and like there's not a lot of guys who can raise their voice and sound how they're supposed to.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, like one example I gave you that he always does a good job just yelling is Tom Cruise. He can yell to the fucking heavens and it sounds amazing every time. That like when he was in Tropic Thunder and he started yelling on the phone.
Yeah.
Okay, flaming dragon, fuckface. First, take a big step back and literally fuck your own face!
Yeah.
Like that, he raises
that
his
was
voice.
some unnecessary ass acting. In a good way.
Yeah.
In a good way. But yeah, that was unnecessary as fuck.
For sure.
But I think that's what set him. That's what made his character so good.
Yeah.
You know, in that movie, and not just that movie, but you know, like the Mission Impossibles. Like I think one of his lovers or something gets shot or something, and he starts screaming and whatever. Like that's what sets aside. That's what got me with Harry Styles in that in Don't Worry Darling.
For sure.
Okay, so where were we on?
As far as like critics go, how do you think that like horror movies fare or do not fare in a good light?
Well, the fact that I can't, to my knowledge, there's none that ever won awards for like best film. Maybe a few best actors or actresses. But I can't even think of anything.
Not off the top of my head.
Not off the top of my head, and that's kind of sad. When I know this is gonna sound biased because we've been mentioning it all fucking episode, but Hereditary.
Really good.
Toni Collette.
Toni Collette, which, by the way, for those of you who don't know, that's the mom from Sixth Sense. And to see her, what, 20, 30 years later? And then she's in this movie and she's like screaming her heart out and
losing her fucking mind.
Yes, it's so good.
You know, and then the next, I don't know which one came first, this one or Knives Out, but then you see her in another light and she's just like some like rich
bitch just
girl
out here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then to see her to go to that, you know, I think she deserved an award for that.
She deserves the world.
A queen.
Truly.
You know, and it's nice to see that it's not just all about the new blood when it comes to acting. Like Mia Goth, fucking Anya Taylor-Joy, Florence Pugh, like all these new. That's fine and everything, but it's nice to see the OG still getting some recognition too.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so and it's not even just with horror. They're always. I don't even watch the Oscars or anything because. No one ever who's supposed to win wins.
Right, and there's a reason for that. So
because we don't get the vote. Nobody we know gets a vote unless there's some there's a set amount of people who get to vote.
Right, because it's always done through like the Academy.
Yeah,
it's always done through the Screen Actors Guild. Like it is people that are specifically on a panel selected, and they can only vote based on their specific categories of like expertise.
Yeah.
So if say this expert is beefing with someone that did really fucking good in a movie, they're not going to vote for that person, which I feel is like where the biases come in. They're going to be like, well, yeah, they did great, but my friend was in this, so let me go and vote for them because fuck this person. and it kind of detracts from like how
politics, baby.
It really is, and it's sad.
They even make fun of that in Tropic Thunder.
Yeah,
the guy is like, he's like, yeah, I didn't even get nominated. He's like, it's all political. You got to take out ads, and it's like that's true. Like you got to basically try to buy it, and the fact that it took Leo DiCaprio, The Revenant, to get his first Oscar,
which, by the way, great acting, right? Deserved, but like nobody talks about that movie. Man.
No,
like he's had so many better movies that he should have gotten awards for, and he never did.
Yeah. So now that we talked about like our favorites, what are some supernatural films that we're just like no?
Ooh.
Like,
yeah. Oh God.
I thought that was gonna make all the Mexican kids shit their pants, but man,
it was kind of rough.
It was.
That was worse than the Nun movies.
I didn't like The Nun.
I didn't like it either, but I'm saying this how it was somehow worse.
The Annabelles.
You know,
there was one that was good. I couldn't do them. I just don't remember which one.
Like the Chuckies, the Annabelles, like the spirit possessing a doll, like the Goosebumps. That stuff never fazed me.
Yeah. So here's.
I thought Chucky was funny.
It was.
It was. Okay. So my whole thing with the Annabelle franchise, the Conjuring franchise, the Nun franchise, it's all based off like Ed and Lorraine Warren's cases to some extent. That was the whole brunt of it. And even like in The Boys, they mention how like the movies are fabricated to some degree because a lot of these cases didn't actually follow through. I like the original Conjuring because it had that like creepy factor to it. While it did have some good jump scares, the clapping game, fucks me up. My niece and nephew tried to do it a few weeks ago. They're like, oh, we're gonna hide and we're gonna clap, and I was like, where did you learn that?
Play hide and clap?
Don't do that in this house. Absolutely not. Like
my
that.
Imaginary friend Steve.
I'm like, let me get my sage. We're gonna cleanse real quick. Come here, kid. Te voy a hacer una limpia de huevo. Like, absolutely not. But
it means she's gonna clean your eggs.
Yeah.
No.
So that movie, I think, did really well, especially with like the basis that it had and all the controversy that exists with that case.
And also with that case, with that specific movie, there was no need for a sequel. The other ones, The Conjuring 2, opened up that universe, that cinematic universe, and it's like, did we really need that?
It's like, I feel like they tried to bank off how good The Conjuring did in itself.
Yeah, that's my point.
And they went to go to like their other cases and try to make it into something. But I feel like it lost a lot of that suspense factor to them. I do like The Conjuring, how they tried to like incorporate a little bit more elements, but like we're gonna dissuade from like, no, that's not what happened, or we're gonna keep vilifying that part of it. I'm like, I didn't like it so much. Also, one of the things was like, Ed and Lorraine Warren, while they were essentially sanctioned by the Catholic Church to some capacity to like perform exorcisms, there's so much more that goes into an exorcism that I was like, okay, I see there's the movie factor. What I did like from it though, the actress that's the mom in that film, the fucking House on Haunted Hill, I feel like she's such a good scream queen, and she has been for a really long time. That movie didn't make it on my list, but it gets an honorable mention because it's just creepy. You get a bunch of people, it's kind of like Rose Red, you get a bunch of people into a house that have like whatever abilities and shit ignites. I don't know, I like that factor to it. But as far as horror movies that I don't like, I'm not a big fan of Paranormal Activity.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of those.
I think it should have been a one and done.
Yeah.
I feel like every, 20 to 30 years, like you have to have some kind of like found footage.
Yeah.
Right? Like the kids crave for found footage. Yes. Right? But like, yeah, that should not have been a franchise. That should have been a one and done. Yeah. Been like, okay, like we all know it was fake as shit, but we had fun. Yeah. Call it quits, but now we get one every 2 years.
Yeah. No, I was not a fan
of those. Only thing that came good out of that was Haunted House. Because it inspired it.
Yeah, that's true.
One that I do like, and it's not up there as far as like quality of horror films, but it's called The Houses That October Built. And it's a bunch of people going around the country, like a group of friends, to go visit haunted houses, and then like bad shit happens. I thought it was done really well, and then I watched the sequel and I was like, why is there a sequel? I was like, I thought they died. I'm like, what the hell happened? But what are some horror films that you guys are like,
that didn't
hit?
Does it have to be?
Doesn't matter.
Well, the Conjuring sequels, The Devil Made Me Do It, was not good. It was stupid. What's another? You said that they didn't do that we didn't like. I'm trying to remember. Well, Chucky would be another one. I don't like Chucky. It's just stupid.
What about the Leprechaun movies?
That scared me as a kid.
They're better than the Chuckies because at least they were entertaining.
Yeah.
They were entertaining, but when he went to the hood,
Leprechaun 4. That's the best one.
But it's like one of those things where it's like, okay, it's funny, like it's not even scary.
Yeah.
But Chucky was like, it was just silly, and it's like, just kick this little bastard.
Do not kick him.
So many things that could have been solved easily, and
just by kicking him.
Like a leprechaun, I get a motherfucker's magical and shit.
Yeah.
He's gonna disappear. I feel like I'm personally like super forgiving of movies. Like I'm always willing to recognize like the good as opposed to the bad. I'm not a this movie that got like a 10 out of 10 sucks because XYZ. I'm always like, well, I like this aspect of it, right? And I feel like to get on my shit list, you have to be like egregiously bad. Yeah. So things like Leprechaun, things like Poltergeist, right? Things like Terrifier. Like you got to recognize those are movies that don't take themselves too seriously.
Poultry or Poltergeist?
Poultry. They build a KFC on top of an abandoned burial ground.
That's a thing?
Yeah.
That's a thing.
It's a B movie. It's a very good B movie on top of that.
Yeah.
Wait, so now you're giving examples of stuff that's good.
Well, hang on. Okay. It's good because it's bad. Right? So that's like a whole different bucket. But I feel like...
Yeah, no, I agree with him though, yeah.
I feel like...
We talked about this.
I feel like you're bad when you try and take yourself like...
Too seriously?
Too seriously. Like Bye Bye Man.
In a movie that doesn't...
Horrible.
Oh my god, yeah.
Could not. And like, you know, you mentioned that like I don't fuck with the witch. It's not up there for me. I did not enjoy the ride. I understand the appeal. I understand a lot of people like it. I get why people like it. For me,
just couldn't get you.
That 2.5, almost 3 hour ride was not worth the cost of admission. Fair. You know what I mean? That was like not a ride I want to wait for at Six Flags, personally. And shit like Bye Bye Man, stuff like we mentioned the Paranormal Activities, right? Like you have to be like egregiously bad, but then like turn a blind eye to yourself and be like, no, this is scary, and you got to be like, this is scary, you know, like drink the piss, right? And like you have to like almost disrespect yourself in a way to be like,
And like the Annabelle films, like you mentioned them for a hot second there before I started talking about The Conjuring. I feel like they're part of the Conjuring universe to some aspect, but if you see an Annabelle, don't come get me because I believe that bitch is real and it is haunted, but I feel like they tried to make the doll so scary that had they just used a Raggedy Ann doll and tried to build off of the suspense of that, it would have been better. Versus like making this doll look decrepit and have like this whole crazy ass history behind it when it was really, it is just a Raggedy Ann doll. One horror movie which fucking movie was it? I was telling Nikki, I don't remember what it's called, but it's this horror movie where it's this nanny that essentially is supposed to take care of the kids and she ends up killing them, and it's so like they show how she does it all and how like she kind of abuses them, and I'm like, things like that, I'm like,
and especially when it's based off of a real case, it's almost disrespectful to like the survivors or the family. You know what I mean? That stuff is almost like manipulative. Like, let's make some cash off of your suffering. I don't like shit like that. One that did fuck me up though was oh my god, what is it called? It's not The Neighbors. It's was Seth Rogen? No. That's why I was like, it's not that. Where they show up to the house and they tell them like, why did you choose us? And they're like, you answered the door. The Strangers. Is it Strangers? No. Oh yeah, that is it? The Strangers, yeah. The Strangers? With the masks? Yeah. That movie, I was like, that's scary because it could happen in my book. Well, it did happen. Yeah, that's terrifying. I didn't know that. Not like that, but That being said, I feel like there's two sides of the fence for like horror fans in regards to like what scares them. And to my experience, there's been like a very good 50-50 split. Now this is biased, anecdotal evidence, right?
Yeah.
But I feel like you're either terrified of the supernatural shit or you're terrified of the like breaking and entering and murdering stuff.
Yeah.
Which side of the fence are you guys on? Money's gonna be like both.
No, see, hear me out.
I sleep with my 1911 next to me, so I ain't scared of shit. But that's not gonna work against a ghost, so.
You know, rock salt.
No, unless you got ghost bugs.
Put some holy water in that bitch.
Oh, she's not melting.
And holy water.
Yeah, there you go.
Put some garlic.
So.
Fucking love garlic. I can never be a vampire, dude. I always double what the recipe says, man.
Oh my god.
Motherfuckers be like, bleh.
No, so for me, it's the human insanity aspect of it.
Yeah.
Like, so I if you guys follow me on anything pop culture, you know I fucking teach spiritual shit on here. I do tarot cards, things like that. Like, there's shit I won't fuck with, like a Ouija board. Absolutely not. Because I'm like, let's not open. Not Ouija. I'm like, let me not open a fucking portal to something I can't close. But there's always some form of solution, even at the end of the day. If we gotta put an Anya Taylor fucking joy and sign the devil's book, alright? But it's the human aspect to it. For me, it's definitely that, because, like, the fuck am I gonna do? I'm 5'2", nothing. Like, I can't run. And, like, that's it. But, yeah, no, for me, it's definitely that. Although there is some of the spiritual horror, like The Grudge, that shit was just fucking terrifying. I'm not a fan of The Ring.
The US version of The Ring?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, specifically.
It's about The Omen?
Yeah. I do think ones that are, like, creepy, like Rosemary's Baby.
Sure.
That was creepy. It had a very just twisted effect to it, because she kind of had no choice at the end. It was like the witch. It was like there was no choice. It's either you go back and get burned for being a witch because your family's dead, or you go and be a witch anyway.
I feel like if a movie gets remade every like 15 to 20 years, like it's objectively good, right? Maybe not the sequel, but like the original source material, you're like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, fair. Yeah, for sure. Nikki, last thoughts?
I don't really, I mean, you know me, I'm not a very spiritual person, so I don't, it's because doesn't happen, so I mean, I don't really get scared. It's more like the visual, like I'm scared of the movie because it's happening, but then...
That's what you get for spending 10 G's on your fucking entertainment system. So you better be scared of that.
You spent all that money.
I'm not scared, I'm returning this shit.
But you know me, I'm a very logical person, so when it comes down to it, I mean, I guess I am scared of either, you know, someone breaking in and trying to kill me, but like I said, I have that covered.
I have weapons.
My door is locked, I'm a light sleeper.
Yeah.
That guy's in for a rude awakening.
True.
Not me.
Fair.
But if it's a ghost or something supernatural like demons, it's like, what can I really do?
Yeah.
I'll just call Mommy, she'll take care of it.
Fair.
She'll take care of it.
I'll be like, I came.
I'm sure if you sensed, I'm sure if you sensed something about me that was supernatural, you would have told me.
I would have done it already. I'd been like, hi, Nicky, I came over. What are you doing? Just leave the house for 20 minutes.
What do you mean all the eggs in your house are empty? What?
Yeah. No, so...
I saw your fridge. You ain't got no eggs.
No, so, like, as you mentioned, like, if I said some shit, I would have done something about it. So, little side tangent as far as ghost stories. My sister lives in Kansas. And that's terrifying.
That's scary on its own.
And no offense, anyone from Kansas, love you, but there was so much death there back in the day, especially like Bleeding Kansas happened, North and South fighting, slavery, like so much shit happened. And I feel like energy, even if it is not an actual spirit, a real like corporeal entity, energy persists. And one of the spaces that she was living in at a point, we pull up to the apartment complex, and I promise you it was like my own fucking horror movie moment, and I was like, we're going in there, and my dad's like, yeah, that's where she lives, and I was like, no, she doesn't, absolutely not. He's like, well, we have to go in there, and I'm like, I'm gonna throw up. My mom's like, are you okay? Like, you're being dramatic right now. And I was like, no, something's wrong. And then I don't know, I kind of laugh about it now because I'm like, that would make a really good horror movie. I gotta find a writer. But, which is why I feel like the paranormal shit, I'm like, I'll figure it out. But when it comes to like the human horror aspect, I'm just like, no.
Not figuring that out.
I'm not figuring that out. I'm not getting far. I'm like, I'll take one of them out with me, but other than that.
Can I have a cigarette before you do it?
Literally. Final wishes, can I just give me? Thank you.
Well, there you go. See, you cover the supernatural, I cover the real shit.
There you go.
And we're protected.
Gabe, where do you land on it?
I swing my broom at anything. You name it, I'm swinging. Stupid little doll.
Oh,
no. Pseudo casserole.
I don't know. I feel like there's valid reasons to be like scared for both. Mm-hmm. I feel like in particular, like I'm more willing to like accept the fact that like, oh man, I got whatever jumped, blah blah blah, right? Like, but like if there's like something at the house, like I am not gonna like sleep. Yeah. Because of that like morbid curiosity. Maybe morbid's the incorrect word here, but like that like curiosity of like, oh man, I got enough to like get me started. Yeah. Right? I got good problem solving skills. I just don't got like the all the books and materials. But I got you. All right, well thank you guys for joining me for today's episode. I hope you guys liked it. Like, share, subscribe, all of that. Gabe, shout out your podcast. I don't do it no more. I ain't shouting out nothing. Shout out Marty to having me. Nikki is going to start doing gameplays, so definitely stay tuned for that. But yeah, thank you for coming on. That was incredible. Catch us on the next episode. And as always, les mando mucha paz, muchos besos, y les recuerdo que miren hacia la luna, sending you much peace, many kisses, and reminding you to always look up at the moon. I love you all so much. Shout out your favorite supernatural horror films in the comments. Let us know anything that you want us to review. Make it dog shit if possible, so I can just watch Nicky squirm to beat horror. That's it from us. I can't even articulate what is life. From us for today, and we'll catch you on the next one. Bye.
That Spanish you said was all one word.
It was not one word.